Tim Walz. I don't know who thought he was a good idea. He was like a second iteration of Tim Kaine, but even worse. He turned out to be a path.
Just saying Tim Walz got roasted. It's saying Lindi Li wheeled out the grill, flipped the board, stole the queen, and then served popcorn while the pawns juggled themselves. That's the mood, and here's the news you clicked for. In a blistering teardown, Lindi Li accuses Walz of selling a
decisions to make about their healthcare decisions and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. I use this line on this, just mind your own business on this. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best. That doesn't preclude.
Carefully ironed, Midwestern steady, brand while ducking hard truths, citing receipts, clips, and contradictions, right as he steps onto the national stage as Kamala Harris's VP pick. You're in the right place. We're unpacking how that roast pierced the armor.
Good evening. After a 2-day manhunt, 2 sleepless nights, law enforcement have apprehended Vance Bolter. That's 48 hours that law enforcement involved in a complex and dangerous man.
Why it matters the second, and what it means for 2025. Popular sentiment says Walz is reassuring. The twist? The roast lands because reassurance became camouflage. Quick proof. Allegations he denied supporting a national abortion ban while screenshots from his own website said otherwise. A debate answer on the Middle East that wobbled when the moment demanded steel. Border talk that sounded borrowed, not built. A public persona that plays cardigan.
He was trafficking in lies and conspiracies. He said that he never supported a national abortion ban. We have in writing a screenshot from his website wherein he supported a national abortion ban. So he was just
calm while policy zigzags left a trail of whiplash. Here's the roadmap. First, the image versus reality gap that cracked. Second, the moment the receipts hit. Then the aftershocks. Media split screens, meme factories, and a campaign trying to outrun a narrative with lead in its shoes. If you want the whole movie, not just the trailer, stay with me because the plot twists get louder. Let's start with
the longer it sat in the open.
Who could possibly think it would be a good idea to lie about being in Tiananmen Square when you were in Nebraska? I mean, come on, it's just so beyond the pale. And now he's thinking about running for president. Didn't he get the memo that the American people do not want a second coming of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz? And Kamala is in California considering a run for governor. We do not want any more DEI woke, any of that. We just don't. We're done with the woke and trans.
Spell usually works. The packaging. Walz markets the vibe of comfort food politics. Bland but dependable, casserole for the soul. Neighbor who waters your plants, dad joke smile. National Guard commander who talks softly and carries a checklist. The IKEA shelf aura. Plain wood, sturdy enough if you don't press too hard. Exactly the kind of shelf you trust until it wobbles on.
Was Lindi Li.
And then the biggest tell of the evening was when he told the moderators, well, I thought the rules stipulated, or something to the effect of the rules were saying that you weren't going to fact check. And you talked about own goals. That was an own goal. That said everything.
But
so he was counting on the fact that no one was going to push back.
Are you frustrated then that Walz didn't make the argument that you're making to me right now?
I think he did a really good job tonight. And we had a live focus group.
Under the family photos. That brand doesn't fail in a scandal. It fails in an exposure. Context. Lindi Li doesn't arrive as a bureaucratic memo. She arrives like a comedy club headliner with footnotes. Tight edits. Sharpened sarcasm. A tone that says, I brought the flashlight. You bring the courage. Application. When a campaign counts on comfort, a roast is a wrecking ball because comfort has no counterpunch. It sighs. It shrugs. It says, don't worry. Framing. Expectations versus reality. People expected steady. They got a highlight reel that made steady look suspiciously
highest rating of the night when he pointed out that Trump completely failed on the border. He didn't deliver on the border wall that he promised. He blew up the border deal that we had, border as a campaign issue. So he scored really highly also when he mentioned Matthew 25 and how his faith guides and inspires his empathy for people, a quality that Trump and Vance so abundantly lack.
Staged. Pattern interrupt. If brand is armor, sarcasm is acid. It doesn't dent. It dissolves. Second best point first. the leadership jitters in high-pressure moments. We don't need to relitigate every policy detail to feel the temperature change when the Middle East question hit. Context. On the biggest stage, gravitas isn't optional. It's the fee to even sit at the table. The expectation was a crisp, grounded, confident summary of October 7th, hostages, Israel's right to self-defense, and the humanitarian stakes in Gaza, a full picture, delivered with command. What viewers felt instead was a stumble that looked more in progress than in charge. Application. In a race this hot, learning curve reads as risk. Voters don't shop for potential when the oven's already on fire. They shop for consistency. Framing. The cardigan brand promises competence you can't see because it's so baked in. The wobble makes the invisible visible. And once you see the seam, you keep seeing it. Mini cliffhanger. Hold that seam in your mind because the receipts are about to pull the thread. Now the strongest point, the screenshot. The accusation is simple, devastating, and easy for non-political junkies to understand. Walz says he never supported a national abortion ban. The counter? A screenshot, his own site, saying otherwise. Context. In the culture war's most radioactive zone, even a whiff of doublespeak detonates trust. Click to the courtroom of public opinion and you don't need a law degree. You just need eyes. Application. When your brand rests on no drama.
No spin.
No nonsense. A single wait but your website can collapse the tent like a bad steak in a thunderstorm. Framing. Expectations versus reality again. Expectation. I'm the straight-talk pragmatist. Reality. A cached page that won't play along. Pattern interrupt. You can argue philosophy. You can't argue pixels. The roast doesn't stop at policy. It rips the costume tags. Critics don't just say, he changed his mind. They say, he changed his story. They point out the biographical flourishes that sound like airport novels, big backdrops, heroic angles, and they ask questions sharp enough to pop the balloon. Who, they ask, thought it was wise to embellish a tale about being somewhere iconic when the map says otherwise? Whether you buy that critique or not, notice what it does rhetorically. It reframes the brand as production design. Context. The teacher next door aura works because it rests on authenticity. Sawdust on the cuffs, scuffed boots, backyard grill. Application. If the audience starts seeing a stagehand hauling props, the magic drops 10 feet. Framing. In 2025, authenticity isn't a look. It's the only currency that doesn't inflate. There's a reason the COVID-era policy whiplash re-entered the chat. Context. Shut, open, lock, glance, shrug. Minnesotans didn't get a villain. They got vertigo. Leaders everywhere stumbled. This isn't about perfection. It's about the story you tell about your stumbles. Application. The pragmatic pitch becomes a coin flip if the audience hears heads or tails but sees roulette. Framing. Steady means you don't pretend a storm is a gentle breeze. Steady means you tell people how hard the wind is going to hit and where to stand. Mini cliffhanger. Put a pin in story versus storm because it returns in a surprisingly small place. Gutters. Crime and reform were never going to be easy dances, but trying to two-step on two boats is how you fall in. Context. 1 foot on reform now, 1 foot on order now, a tempo change every week, and a band that won't agree on a key. Application. The middle path isn't the problem, the choreography is. If you announce balance and deliver a wobble, you invent your opponent's ad for them. Framing. Expectations versus reality strikes again. Voters expected a tightrope walker and got a tourist on a balance beam at a county fair. Pattern interrupt. Every 30 seconds, the roast flicks a different switch. Policy, persona, piety. Speaking of piety, Walz invokes Matthew 25, mercy, care for the least of these. It's a beautiful verse. It also raises a scoreboard nobody wants to see. Context. Value statements are cheat codes if your actions line up. They're red flags if your budgets don't. The critique isn't don't have faith. It's don't use faith as a halo if your arithmetic cuts the glow. Application. When Lindi Li says, you say X but propose Y, she isn't attacking religion. She's fact-checking branding. Framing. Voters in 2025 don't punish belief. They punish packaging. Mini cliffhanger. Packaging shows up again in the weirdest venue, Subway. Yes, the Subway takes bit about gutters. It's light, human, almost disarmingly normal. Keep an eye on the gutters or the basement floods.
Cute.
Folksy. Shareable. But here's the problem with little moments. They become symbols. Context. If policy questions raise the possibility that you missed the metaphorical leaks, a literal lecture on gutters ricochets. Application. The internet is merciless with irony. The clip that's supposed to sell relatability becomes a stitched-together punchline. Fix the gutters, Governor. The water's already in the living room. Framing. In a normal cycle, it's fine. In this cycle, it's a meme. And memes aren't arguments. They're accelerants. Media reaction splits on cue. Half the outlets patted the casserole and called it comforting. The other half smelled smoke and ran toward it. Focus groups echoed the vibe. Walz as fundamentally decent and down-to-earth versus his opponent as slick, sharp, and Silicon Valley adjacent. That contrast helps, until it doesn't. Context. Decency as a differentiator works in a crowded primary. It wilts when the general election frame is competence under fire. Application. When the first minute of a debate goes soft, decency loses oxygen. Framing. The bigger the stage, the smaller the margin for wobble. On national TV, even your shoelaces get fact-checked. And then there's the culture war fatigue baked into everything from DEI to woke. Voters are tired of being scolded by the language police 1 minute and sold by the donor class the next. Context. When critics say, we don't want more performative DEI, they're not just dunking on a slogan. They're begging for policies with bolts and beams. Application. If your brand leans into buzzwords but stumbles on budgets, you hand your skeptics a megaphone.